My name is Ella Spillman, and my article is Some Aspects of Raku Ware. This article was written by Dr. John Dickerson for the journal Transactions. He was a member of the Oriental Ceramic Society in the UK in the 70s and has written a few other pottery texts, such as Pottery Making, a Complete Guide, Pottery in Easy Steps, and Raku Handbook, a Practical Approach to the Ceramic Art. In this article, Some Aspects of Raku Ware, Dr. Dickerson writes about the origins of Raku-yaki pottery. He critiques the way Raku has evolved, especially in the West, and emphasizes the importance of acknowledging its roots and the many generations of Raku masters. During this article, he also covers the way Raku pottery grew in popularity in conjunction with the political and cultural events in Japan at the time. Dr. Dickerson starts by clarifying what isn't Raku. It isn't any low temperature lead glazed pottery. It isn't removing the piece from the kiln after glaze firing when the piece is still red hot and then cooling in air or water. This is the most common interpretation in the West, and both of these things are aspects of Raku, but they are corruptions of the real process. Raku actually comes from a family in Kyoto who have passed this technique down many generations of talented potters. It became popular because of Rikyu's involvement in the process once he became obsessed with wabi aesthetics. Some important terms are hongama and wakigama. Hongama refers to the products from the main kiln, while wakigama refers to products from any secondary kilns, which are not necessarily considered original Raku works. Raku-yaki refers to a very specific style and process of creating ceramic pieces that originated from a Korean-Japanese family. Wabi chanoyu is the wabi tea practice. Kaiseki is a meal that accompanies the chanoyu and is prepared by the host himself. And chawan are the tea bowls. As mentioned previously, Raku isn't merely an aesthetic. It is a process invented and maintained by generations of the same family. The 14th generation of Raku-yaki master is alive today. The Chojiro kiln was founded by a Korean potter named Ameya, who was living in Japan at the time. Ameya married a Japanese woman who was also a potter and had a son named Choyu, which later is styled as Chojiro. Ameya set up a kiln near Kyoto in the 1500s. After his death, his wife became a nun and changed her name to Teirin. She continued to run the family kiln, making mostly roofing tiles. She used glaze techniques that are thought to be a precursor to her son's later development of what is now Raku style. The kiln was eventually moved into Kyoto around 1550, where Chojiro continued production. During the Momoyama period came the end of a long feudal war and a return to a much more calm and fair administration. Tea ceremonies became more popular in the governing and military classes, including Hideyoshi. He decided to accomplish two things with his civil administration: to restore the fairness and optimism, and to heal the deep psychological and spiritual wounds that came from the long and arduous war. Hideyoshi deeply respected Rikyu's aesthetic choices and sought to create the same style in his own tea ceremonies. Rikyu followed Wabi and Zenist principles, which included reverence, purity, tranquility, and harmony with nature. These principles touched every aspect of Rikyu's tea practices. He eventually came upon the Chojiro kiln in his search for Wabi-style ceramic pieces. He worked closely with the family to curate tea bowls and other pots to use in his own ceremonies, and Hideyoshi was eventually a customer as well. The style has relations to Korean practices. The black glaze was quite unusual for the time, and Raku-yaki isn't just a technique. It's become more clear that it is a style and a culture that belongs at the Chojiro kiln specifically. Now, I think that the author claiming that Ameya emigrated from Korea is a bit insensitive to the plight of kidnapped Korean potters at the time, which was very common. And while it is possible that he had moved to Japan voluntarily, it seems very historically unlikely. The author also refers to wabi aesthetics as refined pottery, which shows that wabi cha is a very privileged art and practice, as those people who actually face poverty face true hardship, while the elites may never have to face those same hardships, but benefit from those tea practices.